I'm dying at some point this game because that combo is absolutely disgusting. Renekton, fine in an individual 1v1 versus that Jax, but again, it really is that jungle matchup which can determine how well kind of the top lane 2v2 combos go. So I'm a little bit interested as to why FPX kind of went away from that Sejuani if they were looking towards that Jax in the first place, because now you've just kind of given it up to the Renekton Sejuani. Now you're on the other side of that combo now.
So now let's see if Hacker just goes, all right, well, I'm ready to handshake this. Kindred being looked at against Shun as well. He's one of the best Kindreds in the league, one of the best carry junglers, snowball junglers in the LPL right now. This would be a big test for Hacker, who has seen improving play. Now Kaz is being cheeky with it as well, as Lee Sin actually gets locked in.
Okay.
A champion we have seen from Hacker, but we seldom see on the LPL.
But I was to say, we only have like 1 or 2 junglers that really go towards this right now. I think it's Xioalaohu that plays it a little bit. That one kind of giving you that early game prowess. The problem is, if you pick something like Nidalee, Kindred, Lee Sin, you're not that tanky. If Sejuani or Renekton get their hands on you in a 2v2, you die. You're really looking not to play towards top lane 2v2 with this Lee Sin, but instead probably more towards this mid lane. LeBlanc, she's very slippery, she can move a lot, but the point and click stun potentially coming from Annie means that it doesn't matter if you're mobile, you're stunned, you're dead. I'm really looking to see now, just with these topside drafts already locked in, who is really going to be the focus. If it's topside 2v2, BLG have the advantage. If it's mid lane 2v2 with the jungle, I think that's where FPX find their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point with how much setup there is there, thanks to Annie. I'd be curious to see now, though, what actually happens in that bot 2v2. Because Rel, Heimerdinger, Rakan all taken away. A lot of the time, with things like Heimer, we're angling for Nautilus here. Add a bit more CC into this game. Aphelios taken too. Kind of interesting to see where FPX go with this, because Nymera, when we talk about FPX, it is the Aphelios, it is the Jinx lanes. LWX, historically, also played Kai'Sa, but hasn't played too much of it this split.
Now, the thing about Kai'Sa is if you survive through laning phase, the champion is just obnoxious. And in this kind of game as well, I wonder if there's any options to go towards something a bit more towards that, the AP Kai'Sa. You already have the Annie, but you've got largely AD and there might be some options for build variety. LWX sees that one. But now the question is, BLG, see that Kai'Sa, you know if it survives through lane, you're going to have a couple of issues. You also know that your Sejuani probably wants to be sitting towards topside if at all possible because of that Renekton combo. What have you got in terms of laning phase to really push this Kai'Sa? So you lock in the Xayah, no Rakan to lock in alongside it. Could lock in the Nautilus to take it away. That would be something which I would be thinking about. But you're really looking to keep this Kai'Sa down if at all possible.
I mean, I feel like when you're banning things away like Heimerdinger, you're saying, well, some of our engage tools can't be blocked away. Nautilus hates going into Heimerdinger as well. And so there you go. You also take part of that engage away from FPX and Nymera. They're going down the pool. Like, this is B tier, C tier at the moment. Alistar may be a better option, though. What are your thoughts?
I think Alistar Braum. Alistar Braum. I think those two are the ones where you look at the Nautilus and you say, you hook me, you die. Kai'Sa gets a free lump of gold going straight into their pocket. So I think Chocho has played a bit of that Alistar before. It's very tanky. It's very good at dealing with people diving into him. Even that Sejuani and the Renekton, they head towards the Alistar, pops the ult, and immediately CCs them in return. I think that's a good last pick. We have seen last pick support being used a little bit more in LPL recently, precisely because the AD carry champion pool is starting to change. We're seeing topside drafts being drafted a little earlier, 1 to 3. I think this is a direct product of suddenly bot lanes not being picked on 1 and 2 because Milio is not being picked because it's been banned so often, because Yumi's not available, because a lot of your priority bot lanes are not being picked early. It allows these last pick supports to have a lot more value.
I feel like as well, when we're talking about the supports in this game, like Chocho, yeah, but On especially with his recent performance, giving him a bit of flexibility and giving BLG flexibility to round this draft out by such a nice takeaway is a good thing to see. But for BLG, speaking of, they've already locked in playoffs. They're 10-1. This team is going to the top, and the only team in their way is JDG. But we've seen that matchup. It is now just how many points you can rack up, how many clean 2-0s you can get through, and who else is willing to stop you at this point. Because Top Esports, the only really hard team left in BLG's schedule, and the team that is up in that top 4 left standing against them. It's FPX who really need to step up here because they're 4-7. They need this win desperately if they want to have a chance of getting to playoffs. But Nymera, they have slugged through some of their recent series. They might have been Weibo, but against AL, against OMG, they've taken losses here that they probably wouldn't be too happy about in 3-game series. BLG are not that forgiving. BLG do not fail to capitalize on their early game at all. So let's see if FPX can come through and disrupt the status quo, or if BLG are too much of an opponent here as they strive to lock in first, just at least for the end of the week.
And once again, the Gios devolve into LGD chance towards the end of the day. We do have...
And then they mute the crowd afterwards.
Yeah.
Just straight after. Oh, no.
I think they just eventually petered off. But, you know, I had a bit of an inkling. This was not the first time we'd seen this R5 Alistair coming out, because it was Chocho who did this versus OMG in Game 1. Left this Alistair up to last pick, and that was the game that FPX won against OMG in their 2-1 series loss to them. FPX... They've fought very hard against some of our top-tier teams. They are sat at 4-7, but as we said, if they get a lead on something like this Kaiser, and with Chocho having the last pick support to counter-pick potentially that Nautilus, this is the lane the observers are on, and it's for good reason.
Well, we'll just be watching for who hits who first through the lane. We've been talking a lot about the new 80 carries coming through, but one that's stayed for quite a while now is this Xia. And we know Nymera as well. There's a lot of all-in tools from FPX, but at that 6 point, at those couple of items, Elk is going to be in a position to carry. And when we look at Elk, just a reminder, he's still doing the most damage on his team, 30% average of his team's damage. Ain't as much as last split, which was 32, but still, you know exactly where BLG like to put the eggs in their basket as well.
And Elk was incredibly high DPM in Spring. He was something like 800 average damage per minute in Spring across the entirety of the regular split. That is absolutely insane. Level 2 hit by the spot side, but Q off cooldown by Chocho. They're going to collect this wave at turret. This has been absolutely fine for them. And the early lane, at least, is free of a decent amount of fireworks, so we're going to move elsewhere across the map. Focus on what's happening with these junglers. Hacker, of course, on the Lee Sin. Kind of have to get value out of this early. Very interested to see if you can combo up with this Annie. That typically is the lane that you want to be playing around there. Xioalaohu misses the stun on top, so that's a little awkward for him.
He does as well. And Bin just buffers, trying to get this enhanced Ruthless Predator as well. Xioalaohu walking back in.
Familiar with Renekton myself because he's one of the strongest champions in the new 2v2 arena mode that's going to be coming out.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It really makes me respect why Renekton is meta right now on the Rift, because if it's about 2v2 in that game mode, playing 2v2s in early game as Renekton is absolutely great if you're playing this champion, and you get to have these empowered abilities. Before you reach like 1-2 items, Renekton's empowered abilities is like you have an extra item on top of your regular abilities.
Yep.
They're that strong. And if you get to use them effectively and you don't get your Ruthless Predator ignored by the Counter-Strike, you absolutely roll over a matchup like Jax early.
I mean, we've seen it so many times now, like with so many LPL top laners in the league, loving this pick. I mean, Renekton sells the LPL. I think we know it's a dynamic that a lot of players are used to playing because of how aggressive it is early. But as you were saying, it's those empowered abilities through his Reign of Anger that lets him take over some of these lanes. CS lead already built up as he crashes the wave in. Might not be too much here, only in the name of 4. Xioalaohu is trying to get an early reset back, but Bin continues shoving in. Even without full vision priority towards the top side, Nymera, he is just putting on the works in this lane.
And that's very important because, again, this Renekton has such early power. If you manage to have a strong early laning phase in the way that LPL top lanes pretty much always do when this champion is picked, it allows you to potentially have a teleport at 10 minutes. It definitely allows you angles around Herald. It's one of the things which kind of frustrates me the most is when a team looks at a Renekton on the other side, sees the 8-minute timer and goes, I can win that fight. You don't win against Renekton early, especially the first objective fights of the game if he chooses to turn up. And when you have an early lane advantage like Bin has right now, he has lane push, he has CS lead starting to build up as well, you just need to just keep this guy in a box and make sure he doesn't impact the game and his point of power.
God, 11 solo kills as well. I mean, we're obviously talking about Bin for good reason. Xioalaohu trying to spot out this back. He does interrupt it. And that Counter-Strike play, again, just slice and dice away from. Remember that Bin has TP, so he should be fine. Xioalaohu's already used his. Meanwhile, bot side, for a control ward, Hacker's just going to come through, built up wave. But against the Nautilus, I'm always a little bit sus on trying to dive this Nymera.
Especially if you don't have an aftershock on your support. That was one of the old kind of go buttons for playing dives when that was a bit more meta for supports. Not going to be the case for Chocho going towards that Glacial. Very much helps you against the Nautilus because well, and especially in team fights later, the Renekton and the Sejuani, the glacial field goes down, you're slowed, you're stuck into that plate. Just doesn't help you against tower shots, especially very early on. We need to wait until that level 6 mark. So not really the time window that FPX are looking for right now.
No, and with the spotting on bot side as well, I mean, Bin, again, has that same freedom. But we were just talking about, gets a plate with Demolish, is level 6 now as well. This wave is going to crash, and Bin's going to try and zone out Xioalaohu as he comes back to the minion wave. Ulti now burnt under turret. Does he care? Ruthless Predator used.
Ooh, close.
So yeah, not going to do too much here, but does mean Bin's ulti is down as the wave comes in for a second time.
It's the right choice. You have level 6 to level 5, just mistimes the counter strikes, so can't get the stun through that auto reliant. Now 3 versus 2 on the bot side.
Well, it takes the flash from Elk, gets a root up, or rather it's a help of On. Chocho gonna drop down in first blood, given over to this Xia. BLG, right where the money is on the board.
Gotta wonder where the FPX thought that Shun was topside because Bin went for that ballsy play towards topside himself. Care gets his recourse stopped, not gonna die, but I think FPX, I think they just lose out a little bit on a mind game. They think that maybe Shun is not there. Completely blindsided when the Sejuani turns up bot, and that's gonna open up Dragon Star. Kara's looking towards this.
But if he comes in here, will he die? Well, flash from Shun maybe says otherwise. Cares out with his own. Chocho over the wall wants the Hex Flash for this, and we'll find an angle now, but Shun now looking around. Elk has to burn his own. There's Tibbers, but Hacker's rooted up. Look at Elk free hitting with this LeBlanc jumping into the back line. FPX have managed to find a favorable trade, though, as now for BLG, it's about getting out of there. Elk with no ulti has to get the root, does find it for Yagao, though. There's no follow-through. And like that, FPX turned that long fight into a successful trade. As, oh my god, the charm! No, Yagao! Auto attack with Fleet gives them a bit of movement speed to get out of there, but Care so close to dying. Meanwhile, LWX gets the auto, and now this Kai'Sa all of a sudden is a big threat.
That is a huge loss to take towards this bot side. I don't know how BLG managed to lose with the HP advantage so far in their favor, especially with Elk flashing out of that initial combo by Chocho. But FPX, now with that gold in hand, you can really start seeing where they can start succeeding in this game. Even though Bin's got that huge lead, Kai'Sa with gold is more than just surviving the laning phase. They're thriving in it. Shun uses his flash early. You don't have a Sejuani ult just yet. So how the heck does this end up getting turned around? I think the Dragon's a big part of it, because I think the Hextech AoE takes down a lot of these HP bars a little bit more than BLG were counting on. And then as soon as Elk has to start kiting backwards without an ult and without that second cast of an E available, he just can't do the same amount of damage in the right time frame needed for BLG to walk away with a win.
I also want to mention, while that was going on, and while Yagao missed pretty much every chain we saw on screen, Bin also burned a flash to topside. And it looks like there was a health trade in order to force his Jax back, so Xioalaohu had to return to base. That's why Bin, as we came through, was hitting turret plate for free, as Shun's now caught out. BLG flopping about like wet fish right now, and FPX are just taking full advantage of it.
This is a huge moment for FPX, though. One of the things we talked about earlier is, hey, Renekton is very good around playing around Heralds. You can't play around that Herald, though, if your entire team has just died beforehand, doesn't get the reset, and then gets picked off before the Herald starts up. So FPX, they're winning in a very important area of the game. The Lee Sin's getting value, Kai'Sa's getting gold, which means that they'll be very relevant afterwards. And Chocho, on the last pick, counter-pick support, has had huge value in the last 2 fights.
Yeah, he really has. 100% kill participation. Alongside his AD carry, who now has the Pepega Shiv, is something worth crying about if you're a BLG fan, as Herald has been acquired by Hacker. So Chocho sits in brush waiting. On now moving up as well, but FPX trying to make a play and get some gold away from this top side.
How many people do they think are up here? It's just that too. I don't think they see where Shun is on the map. He's currently down towards that bot side. I don't think this is realistically a dive potential, is it? I think you're still diving a Jax with Counter-Strike and all.
Yeah.
Maybe just looking for the plates.
Maybe for the time being. Never mind, they don't. Flash comes out early. Elk out now has all the feathers down. Root doesn't work out. Ulti from Xioalaohu. Nymira, I don't think he played that very well at all.
That was a bit of an awkward one. The melee range ult hard to miss. Fighting the top side, though.
But against the Renekton, what? Why? Why would you jump into a Nautilus Renekton? What year is it?
The time is now, and you might be wondering how we got here.
Don't dive.
I'm wondering exactly the same thing.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Maybe it's okay. I'm just a little bit suspect. Apologies, as Bin doesn't have anything available, but he still jumps back in under turret.
Huh?
Yeah, maybe that's why. Ulti used by LWX, and he'll get the kill on the way out as Chocho now taking up.
No!
He dies as well. Bin takes 2 numbers on his way out. That's the croc.
I mean, with Chocho ascending to heaven on the cow, the stakes have never been higher, my friend. Bin somehow gets away with 2 kills and an assist. The whole point was that you're meant to avoid this Renekton. That was the whole point of this early game. You were doing great at it. They completely throw the game into Bin's hands.
I love it. Absolutely love it. We're going down Yakety Sax territory as we watch again. Nymira, explain this.
Well, I think our dear hacker has, he's not been hydrated enough. I think he's starting to lose his head a little bit there, as that is not the play of a well-meaning man, that one. And it allows Bin to get on the turret, and he's popped the Dominus. Before you get first item, when you have your first Dominus to the game, Renekton is absolute Exodia. You don't beat this champion, especially with the tower involved. LWS getting the kill back, it's nice, but giving this much gold over to the Renekton is just going to extend his window of power. And poor Xioalaohu on the other side has to look at this ungodly strong Renekton after that dive and say, what am I meant to do as the Jax?
Is Care in trouble, though? I mean, remember, Static Shift's picked up. It's a crit! Oh, you gotta love LeBlanc at this state.
I don't think Care loves it that much. Goes down to the LeBlanc. Yagao somehow 3-1 after this point, after the early skirmishes go his way. And what felt like an awesome early game state for FPX has completely flipped on its head. They've capitulated over to BLG. That was a series of very unfortunate events.
The crit. I mean, just seeing LeBlanc crit. Oh, man. Where are we? I mean, it's a 2K gold lead. BLG have taken back control. They've wrestled it back after their flubber-dub play down bot side. Let's have a look again at the solo kill, I guess.
Yeah, definitely some vibes of... Remember when you used to take 1% crit runes on your on any champion, and you'd see like Lee Sin crit you twice in a row because that happens? LeBlanc autos, everyone!
Love it. 160 damage crit. Hell yeah, man. That's not the only lane going backwards. I mean, it's a 40 CS lead mid, but there's a 30 CS lead top. There's a Jax who can't withstand the pressure from Bin. A full item, or rather at least an item and some components here for Bin. Xioalaohu, who knows how close he is to that Divine Sunderer is. Nymira, we're going to be realistic. This game has flipped completely around, and BLG, remember, got that first dragon. So in 2 and a bit minutes, we are going to find out if FPX are willing to contest, because with the snowball already enacted in the solo lanes and how this game's going, FPX have to stop this train. Otherwise, they're just going to get wiped out.
The one saving grace for them is LWX is also ungodly fed. Heading towards 2 items on that Kai'Sa. It's AP variant as well, so it looks like it's the Nash's Tooth coming up. I almost wonder if it's worth going towards a full poke build, because you do outrange the team very heavily, and it might be a chance to completely make this no counterplay for the low range champions of BLG. Sadly, they're not really squishy enough for the poke to be completely valuable, so he is going to go towards a bit more consistent DPS. So LWX, 2 items, that's something to play around, but you cannot let this champion get in range of the Renekton, otherwise the fight is just over.
Yep. And one shredding move, I should say. One moment where you're that close and you Yagao, Bin, Elk. I mean, the damage is going to be insane at that range. As turret goes down bot side, BLG move to 3K. Herald going to be up in a little bit, 40 seconds. Dragon then soon as well as... Isn't it? Elk is nearby. Double chain. 2 chains, baby. As Care goes golden, Tibbers now aggressing onto Yagao, but an auto attacker cleanse, and away it goes. Meanwhile, Yagao getting teleported on. An opportunity here. Xioalaohu flashes, but it's matched here. Ulti burnt, but Shane not connecting on the way out. Yagao's still out, but now Elk is by himself. He followed Yagao for this. He wants to die to turret, and guess what? I'm pretty sure if he walks into the next one, that should be the case. Nope, Care somehow got the kill after all that time.
I think Leandri's burn kept him in combat long enough to get that assist. So, well, the actual kill itself. So, some gold back. But you can see how difficult it is to play around LeBlanc in the side lane. So much gold. We saw this actually yesterday with Vitio and the LEC playing the LeBlanc with the Static Shiv, and it feels like, particularly when you have a Lee Sin Annie, your job is to keep down this LeBlanc. If that doesn't happen, LeBlanc gets the 1-2 items, particularly once you get the Merc Treads and your first couple of items as well. The combo falls off beyond that point. If Annie doesn't have genuine one-shot potential, LeBlanc doesn't really care for them because she just returns the favor and has instant wave clear as well. So now BLG does feel like they're in a very good spot. Xioalaohu is still trying to claw onto relevance in this game. Had to blow that flash just before as well. That's an awkward moment. At least FPX haven't been tested in a true 5v5. I think that would go very poorly for them as it stands.
Yeah, I mean, look, overall, FPX have just found picks in this game. Tried for the dive and topside, as we all saw. The only good thing that's come out of all of it, and in the state of the game, is the fact that LWX is 4-0. LWX is on the Nashes now as well, so 2-item Kai'Sa. That, as you were saying, you know, the range is going to be there, especially with the W upgrade. We're just going to have to see if LWX can carry this, because you're already talking about the Annie Lee Sin combo. I want to point out the Alistar pick potentials there too, that maybe can sync up with one or both. FPX just need to utilize it, because right now BLG are running the map. Side lanes are a nightmare, and they can't even deal with the 3-stack from BLG as they push and threaten mid.
So my worry about the Alistar is that you have to make sure the damage is being funneled into the Alistar, where your carries are safely behind them, and it's all happening within the duration of his ult. I don't think FPX have the goal to take that kind of fight. It would have to be very opportunistic of them, with Chocho finding a way to form a front-to-back fight with LWX flying in afterwards. I just don't think FPX have the position on the map, and as you can see, FPX, they're not getting those clean fights. They're losing across side lanes. Bin is ungodly fed, and so is Yagao. So BLG, they don't ever have to play around that Alistar. They don't care at all.
It'll just keep going like this. I mean, BLG, they give away things like Dragon, as Mountain was taken by FPX, but Bin will then just move to another side lane. There's pressure put on. BLG then use that and swap around the rest of the map. And no, Mira, we're getting to things like Baron as well. So if we have some of these deep lanes like bot side pushed in, BLG, not the slowest Baron in the world, not the fastest, but still worth mentioning. And they can always just sneak the objective, and what can FPX do?
Oh, very little, because they can't play on multiple lanes as well as BLG are. And as you can see, they've got the second Herald right now. This might be the one chance for FPX to make some kind of play. Everyone's in the same place at the same time, but feels like they're just going to seed this turret to say, look, we've already lost enough HP on it, the Herald's taking it down anyway. It just really sucks for FPX, because you're looking for some kind of play where Annie, Alistar, Jax can get value first, so it allows Kai'Sa to have space. But I mean, BLG, they're wise to their tricks. They're just not getting them the fight, giving them the fight that they want, and because they're winning so hard through their side lanes when they're playing on multiple lanes at once, I don't think there's any reason for them to stop.
At least getting topside turret is going to be good though here for Xioalaohu. As Bin looks for the chase up, but he's already out of there. So some gold back over to FPX. That might ease things up for the time being, but Bin is just going hard out for the push. And we'll just have to see how far FPX let him go. There's that Baron in minute 30, Dragon 2 minutes. Game has lulled about for a little bit, but BLG just taking whatever they can do, whatever they can get. I mean, into the enemy jungle straight away. Hello, Xioalaohu. He'll have to leap over to a ward. Strange ult from Shun. Azon might be caught out. Depth charge going to be blown down, but he re-engages, then flashes out. A bit of a crazy move as over the wall. Guess who pops his head in? Yagao teleported in for that, and BLG. A couple of strange moments as FPX, I guess, will be happy with that.
You can see how tanky On is not right now. Has to flash out of that play, is the person focused down. If this fight becomes about which first target is getting focused down harder, Chocho wins that as the support matchup. So On, without flash now, needs to be a little bit more careful. Maybe can't make that same mistake twice. However, we did see the auto-attack proccing Night Harvester on everyone on the other team, so Yagao was probably bumping up his DPS with that 2-item spike at that point. That's going to be fun to keep track of after that point. And we are still at a position where FPX have not been given a multi-person fight, really. They've not really been given a team fight at this point. They would one in bot side and BLG said, right, enough of that. Hacker's trying to pick off Yagao, but he's LeBlanc, so good luck.
They're bringing numbers to this as well. So Bin just goes back towards bot side. Remember that Dragon's up in 50 as well. So pressure through that lane is going to equivalent to BLG finding the second Dragon. As still setting up on this top side. FPX hovering around this Baron themselves too. I will say, if there is a mistake from BLG, FPX's Baron might be surprisingly fast.
Especially with the Rageblade AP Kai'Sa, that always was the queen of Baron shredding, so LWX has power in his hands for that one. However, trying to go towards Baron is very difficult when you're losing across the map again. Shun is tanky enough to not to get picked off at this point. It's not On who's the first person into the fray without Flash. Shun more than happy to take that out with Aftershock involved too. So BLG, they're back onto the map. They're not necessarily getting to the point where they are holding FPX completely over the flames. LWX is still getting farm. Their FPX is still looking towards this Baron and being able to maintain some vision around that Baron area. So BLG, I think they need to start racking their heads a little bit now in terms of, okay, they're doing okay right now, but how do they force FPX into a truly game-losing decision?
Well, they don't get caught. That'll be the start to FPX clear away some of the vision from BLG. As you can see, the movement already is leading them towards this river, trying to find that pick that will open things up. And you know, Chocho, lucky he's the Alistar, is just going to walk that one out. But now BLG, the to and fro of vision goes back towards them. And the setup looks mighty easy here as FPX have to walk into the fog of war themselves.
And I'm sure there are a couple of people out there which are saying, hey, this is a really slow-paced game. What's happening? We're not fighting around dragons. I've sort of missed having a game like this every now and then because we rarely get to see proper 3-lane macro into the mid-game anymore. It has felt like for the last, I don't know, 2-3 years at this point, dragon fights have been what's determined the game. And we have a lot of very good dragon fighting teams. But as you can see, a lot of these teams can tend to give it over knowing that they have either split push pressure or they're playing against the split push pressure, so they're not just giving a free fight over at that objective, not just sleepwalking their way into a lost fight. So for me, I'm now very interested to see, because we don't see this kind of game as often. Yes, we see it more with the Shiv meta and LeBlanc being involved, but very interested to see if a team like FPX can puzzle the way through it against one of our strongest teams in the league.
Well, they did in Game 1 versus OMG. It was a very different FPX, but kind of failed to continue that strength in the rest of a couple of games. It was the last time we saw FPX. And they got reverse swept in the series. Game 1, has it always been their strongest, honestly? There's BLG getting poked out a little bit here through mid. FPX regain control up towards that river, up towards Baron's side, but we continue lulling about. Just letting 80 carries pick up their third items. And speaking of, QuiQiu for LWX is worth mentioning. He's actually ahead of Elk in this game with all the kills he picked up earlier.
The problem is, though, you've gone for the AP Kai'Sa, and look at the magic resist on the other side. Spirit Visage and Merc Treads and Negatron Cloak. You've got Banshees being, rather, that's Lichbane coming in. But you have the Merc Treads from LeBlanc anyway, and there's a more third on Elk. The poke is going to land less hard, your burst damage with the Annie is going to land less hard. It has to be about Xioalaohu and Hacker getting something done.
Can they kill Shun? With Aftershock at the moment, definitely not. As LWX doesn't get to show us more of his damage, but a bit of burst on the jungle while bot side. Xioalaohu's popped his ulti, Bin holds on to his, but Care's coming in onto Yagao. FPX are at least more threatening. They've had time here. His teleport being channeled. LWX has to cancel the back. Bin now looking for another target as his ulti is still there available. Dominus needs to be used. Bin now into the thick of it, shot around as the AoE is so punishing. FPX feeling confident they can turn this one around, but BLG still way too strong. And in a choke versus LeBlanc, Renekton, and Sejuani, you better believe they're taking that one wholeheartedly.
It's a bit of a slow build, but BLG get the vision control, they get the side lane pressure, and eventually FPX make the mistake. We don't see this kind of game so often anymore. It's been a long time since this three-lane style has been in focus for Pro League of Legends. And even without the Sejuani ult landing, though, BLG, they set up this fight so much better than FPX. They have the vision, which allows them to teleport into the right place. There are only so many places that LWX can go, and the mobility from BLG comes up trumps.
Yagao actually doing the majority of the damage in that last team fight as well. Watching Elk in the backside was fun, but Yagao just jumps on in and bursts down the remainder of the health bars. On also with a beautiful ulti. It all came together for BLG yet again, as you'd expect here. As 8,000 in the lead. With the Baron now attached. Nymera, this just feels super easy. And like, even though there's been some moments where we've been doubting BLG, where FPX have had at least something to say, it always just comes back to this point where BLG showing up massively is, hang on, we'll pause on that. Yagao needs to run away here as he jumps back in with the chain, trying to survive this, but AoE heaven. Meanwhile, mid is going to be threatened. BLG still have the inside track, but are they scared to take this 4v5?
I think with Chocho having flash and ult, it's a little bit awkward. Again, now Alice is tanking the first.
Bin has ulti as well into the choke. Great kick. LPX flies through. BLG with numbers disadvantage. Still fighting as Elk is in the perfect spot though. Watch this Xia cleave away. Remember how fed she is as well. Feathers out. Numbers be damned. It's Giga Bin again. Give him 3 kills. Give him your love. But don't give him Renekton.
For anyone wondering why Renekton is a meta pick, look how Ben has played this game. Dominates lane, picks up a mistake from FPX thrown at him and says, okay, I'll take this dive couple of kills, even though it's you kind of throwing the mistakes at me. And then it just rolls into the mid and late game. FPX, they have been utterly outplayed in this game.
This was just a bit of a fiesta at times, but it was so much fun to watch BLG outclass, as they have with a lot of their opponents. They come away from MSI Grand Finals, and ever since here in the Summer Split, they have looked more fierce than ever before. 1-0 to start off this series, and FPX better change something because BLG will walk over them if they get similar draft again.
It's too many mistakes, really. The early game fight, it felt like around that Dragon